to the Tour of Valencia, the Comunitat Valenciana, in fact, 170 kilometers today, destination Altea. And this picture you're seeing right now is about where the finish line is, and there's an absolutely brutal wall for them to enjoy. More on that in a moment. This was yesterday, stage 3. Had ourselves some brave souls who decided that they were going to take on the break. Hit aside from Caio Rural, Julian Irizar from Fundación Orbea. Ricardov as well was up the road for Gazprom, and indeed they were playing with us. Daniel Vargas likewise also making it into the move. That thinned down, and we had, as you could see, a trio late on. With 17 kilometers remaining, however, it was always going to be wound in. A sprint beckoned. Plenty of wind and a nasty final turn with around, approximating 850 meters to go. So Moreno out the head here for Equipo Kern Farmer, was he and Seiss sharing the duties there with Irizar, but they were going to get wound in. The gap controlled by the sprinters, and indeed those still with ambitions for the overall, and so tight it is at the top. It was a question of finishing positions as to who indeed would indeed take the lead of the race. Coming into it, Pogacar had been the man in control, but this was going to be about the sprinters. And indeed, if you just turn your mind back to stage 1, Groenewegen started off as favourite. Well, Groenewegen himself did pop out wearing the orange jersey. Indeed, it's a drag race to the line. There's plenty of shoulders out there. John Degenkolb also getting in the mix, as you can see. And by the time we did get to the line, well, there was just going to be one man in it seems. We predicted him from the start. Bit of a tighter one this than had been on stage 1. But nonetheless, Groenewegen did come through to take the day. Led out beautifully and indeed powered through. Trentin also getting in the mix here. There, the orange jersey brought it home for Jumbo-Visma. Well, it couldn't be more different, the terrain we're dealing with today. Altea, and indeed the climbs, but who will it be? That's the question. Here's your map, a couple of loops away from Calpe that so many know about. Benidorm as well, I'm sure so many of you at home know about, but less dancing and drinking, more riding and winning is what today is all about. Look at those mountains that you can see in the background of the picture here, writ large upon your screen, with indeed those peaks outlined for you. They've been busy out there, and in fact we're just off that final peak, but it isn't the major test. That comes right at the very last. So if you think we've dealt with the high ground already, then think again. There is one more run to be taken, and with ramps of 20 and more %, it's going to hurt. Well, that was then, and this is now. 55 kilometers to go, so we've come out of the mountain range. We're doing a big loop, as you've seen from the profile, and we'll be heading back to it. Now, our breakaway, well, it couldn't be higher quality, quite frankly, and as a result, we believe they've got a great chance of making it. Let's wait and see, shall we? It's always a roll of the dice, but with somebody in the break such as Pello Bilbao, and yes, he is here, he's got the sort of qualities that can deliver the right time, and maybe this is indeed that time. We shall see. So, Simon Gerrans, what an exciting day, and what a tortuous finale it lays ahead of us.
Yeah, what an exciting stage. They say the queen stage of this Tour of Valencia. The riders at this point in the race they've encountered 4 categorised climbs. Nothing too steep at this stage. A lot of the climbs around 5%, but it's all going to come down to this final ramp up to the line. 5 kilometres, averaging around 12%. So this is going to really decide not only stage, but the GC of this year's race.
Well, the pace that's being set at the moment is quite a high one. They've got a little bit of wind assist, nothing too serious. In fact, temperatures nudging up towards around the 18 degrees. If those clouds come in, it may well cast a shadow over these guys, but number 115 draws the eye there in the gold, tangerine and black of Bahrain McLaren, Pello Bilbao. Some real quality out within this break, though. Gonzalo Serrano, you're looking at right now, is also a decent climber. We've got Tim de Klerk up there for De Koenig Quick Step as well. Number 172 is Carboni from Bardiani as well, and 2 from CCC up towards the front.
Yeah, obviously we have Greg Van Avermaet in the break here, an attacking rider, and Nathan Van Hooydonk, his teammate, who's a big ruler and will be out there to really push the pace for Greg. But Greg, a rider that's not afraid to attack in the mountains. He's no more of a classic specialist, but if you look just back a couple of years to the Tour de France, in the yellow jersey, attacking off the front in the mountains, he's not afraid to get out there and have a real crack.
Yeah, I remember it, 2016, wasn't it? You were a teammate, weren't you?
2018 in Team BMC.
2018,
We were there competing in the Tour de France together. Amazing effort, really carried the team through that Tour de France.
And there is Greg Van Avermaet as part of a breakaway today. He's got a teammate with him as well, Nathan Van Hooijdonk, who'll be teeing him up for the high ground. Now, it is a proper test. It's really rather steep. We're talking maximums of 23%. It comes right at the very end of what's been a long day. We've already taken on 4 climbs. They've been dealt with, so we've come back from the mountains. We're looping down into the low ground past the old tomato growers, and then Altea beckons. Now, the kick at the end is a really serious one. 2 riders here that can possibly stretch their legs are indeed Van Avermaet, who we know, classics man, but going to extend himself yet again, I think. If he's could just dial his mind back to what, 18 months ago when he did it in the Tour de France while leading, he could have a chance. But this man, Pello Bilbao, I think is the big threat today. Having got into the break, 14th overall, 10 seconds down. This is no laughing matter for those who want to save something out of this race. It could be a big definer. Jack Haig leads the race. He wears the yellow jersey for Mitchelton Scott. But there are so many others who would like a piece of the cake, quite frankly. At the moment, the cake's been stolen and it's heading off down the flatlands here, and so they need to wind them in. The gap had been up around, hovering around a couple of minutes for quite some time, but the pace and the way they're sharing the duties from the break is impressive. They're holding their own, aren't they, Simon?
Yeah, they certainly are holding their own, and there's no longer any major difficulties between here and the final ramp up to the line. So this is the opportunity for the breakaway to really try and stretch that lead out as much as possible to start the final 5 kilometres of racing with a decent advantage.
Van Hooijdonk's a great time trialist, so if you really wanted somebody to be alongside you at a moment like this, it would maybe that would be your choice. Greg Van Avermaet down there in 10th place in the general classification, only 5 seconds down. No disrespect to Greg, but I think Pello Bilbao has probably got a better chance today if it really does start to fracture late on. But Greg can function in the high ground as he has shown before. Can he do it this early in the season, though? That's the question.
Well, I think he's got some fantastic results historically in the early season. We often see him winning the Tour of Oman. I think he's won stages down there for the past few years. So he's a rider that generally starts his season out in great condition. And that's no different this year by what we see. You can see Bilbao is only a matter of 2 seconds behind 2 seconds, 5 seconds maybe behind Van Avermaet on the general classification. So 5 seconds gap on a ramp like this one that we're going to encounter up to the finish today is absolutely nothing.
Tim de Klerk, he's a bit of an all-rounder, good GC man. One-day races, he's got to sort of dial in his one-day head, really, hasn't he, to deal with this. Former under-23 national champion, but you know, he's had some fantastic results. And you don't win, you don't get well placed in races like Les Samines, which have a tough slap in the face within that race, unless you are capable of carrying it. So let's wait and see. It's a long haul reach, though, this one, isn't it? At the very last, many describing it as a wall, and it's going to feel like that with the sort of ramps that we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, it certainly is. From what we've looked into, the first 2 kilometres of this climb is not overly steep, below 10% in gradient most of the first 2 kilometres, but then it ramps up, and the final 3 kilometres of the stage is in the teens all the way to the line, with the steepest gradients coming in the final probably 500 metres, where we encounter up to 20% gradient to the line. So the riders are going to finish today's stage completely exhausted and potentially have to be caught off their bikes.
I remember Carboni being in the break in the Giro d'Italia last year, very late on, the day that Esteban Chavez skittled off. Carboni was up there. In fact, he put some very, very good riders in his wake that day. That was the big climb up to San Martino di Castrozza. So yeah, again, somebody else who's given to being able to shine on the day. Carboni not a threat, not so much of a threat overall as those who are with him within the break, but nonetheless also a handyman to have. They've almost assembled a band of brothers here that, should they work together, could well fashion a victory today.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think working against Carboni, he's probably the only rider in this breakaway who's not completely familiar with the roads they're racing around today. I know for a fact that Team CCC do their pre-season training camps down in this area. Calpe is where De Kooning Quickstep often go. Serrano from Cahural, he'll be likely familiar with the roads. So all these riders will know these roads really well today, and I wouldn't be surprised if they'd actually recon them in the past month of training.
Well, Serrano's got a bit of a kick on him, but he doesn't mind ramps either. We saw that in the Tour of Turkey last year, where he had a very good run. I know that was mainly a highway race, but they do take some high ground as well, and he functioned well there. So 46 kilometres to go, and the eye drawn, as Spanish television is given to doing, to Alejandro Valverde, a man that does not want to make a mistake today. Didn't quite have that last little kick, did he, on stage 2, which is our reference point really for today, because that was a nasty kicker towards the end as well, which Pogacar did an amazing job. I think he's possibly still favourite for today, the UAE rider Pogacar, but Valverde will want revenge. And as you look further back through some others, Bahrain, McLaren, if it's not going to be Bilbao, and I think Dylan Turns, Mark Poles, they'll all want to have a go today. So there's plenty of options, I think, still out there, and I think a lot of teams as well, as we pass by some of the gauze that's been set here to protect the fruit from the frost. These guys will want to indeed kind of defrost themselves out of the closed season for many of them. I think those who've trained well through the winter will carry a lot into today. You know, one rider who does that very well is Tao Geoghegan Hart. He seems to have come into the beginning of this season, and he's been shining brightly as well. So if it does all come back together, don't be surprised if Tao actually takes a step forward for Team Ineos. There's a couple of other riders out there that may well make a mark today.
Yeah, there's a number of riders that are going to be looking to make an impact on today's stage. Dan Martin.
Very much so, yeah.
Very much so. Tao Geoghegan Hart, as you mentioned. Why not Gianni Moscon, one of your favourites?
That'd be nice. It might be a bit much for the big guy, but yeah, I think Tao would be the favoured man. But he's, for a big man, he does get over some big inclines. Jonas Aguirre, I think, who of course comes in here as defending for Astana. I think they'll go strongly, but right now it's Mitchelton Scott, of course, for the race leader Jack Haig. And why shouldn't it be Jack, eh?
Yeah, fantastic opportunities for Jack Haig. We've spoken about on several occasions this week. It's not often that Jack has the opportunity to step out of the shadows of the likes of the Yates brothers and Esteban Chavez. So it's great to see him lead this Mitchelton Scott team on GC and really take it on. Obviously leading into today's stage with no time advantage over the other 6 place riders behind him. It's still really anybody in the top 10 could win this.
Very much so. Yeah, Jack Haig is always a man who's been sacrificing himself because of that and the nature of his approaches to some of the climbs. In other words, he's guiding others up usually. He's got a reputation of being a bit of a diesel in the high ground, but he has got a kick to him as well, and we may well get an opportunity to see that today. Let's wait and see and keep our fingers crossed, shall we? It's going to be dramatic. Welcome back. It's a 2-minute gap to our brave riders in the breakaway, 6 of them in fact. Not only brave, they're also extraordinarily capable, and that really is acting as a warning to these guys down on Terra Firma. As we look from the helicopter, it's Mitchelton Scott that's doing much of the chasing. They've been helped in that regard by Team UAE. Tadej Pogacar, favourite for today, and maybe to take the lead off the back of that jersey, off the back of Jack Haig for Mitchelton Scott. Just tucked in behind as well, Alejandro Valverde's Movistar team in their familiar blue. He's with the white jersey of with his national colours as a band of yellow and red across his back and breast. They push on at the moment. 35 kilometres, however. The approach speed is absolutely at its highest at the moment. They're powering along on the flats at about 55, 57 kilometres per hour. And that takes an awful lot of energy. But that's because of the danger of this breakaway. They're fully aware that they have got a march on them. And as they relay, Nathan van Hooijdonk, fantastic time trialist, is giving a great excuse, I guess, for Greg van Avermaet, who could miss a few turns here. Everyone else is going to have to take one. Greg's been putting his hand to the pumps. We're looking at him right now, and in case you think he's, you know, just going to be a classics man and today will defeat him, then think again. We're reminding everyone that on the Tour de France a couple of years ago, he was just outstanding in the yellow jersey, the power of yellow, we said, but he was skipping up some great mountains. They have been over 4 today, but there's one test still to come. It's at the very end of the day, and in fact we'll be at the foot of it. It's about 23 kilometres in fact, about that margin we're going to start to pick up. So we're on the flatlands at the moment, despite the fact it rises and falls ever so slightly. Within this group, 2 contenders for the title. Greg van Avermaet himself, who's 5 seconds down, a further 5 seconds back in the GC behind the leader Jack Haig is Pello Bilbao for Bahrain McLaren. So the orange of CCC, which is Van Hooijdonk and Greg van Avermaet, nearly matched by the gold, orange and black of Bahrain McLaren and indeed Pello Bilbao. That's caused alarm bells to ring here, which is why Jack Haig's men, Mitchelton Scott, are doing much of the chasing. He is in the leader's yellow jersey. A little bit further back, but his men are setting the pace. UAE also joining the fun and trying indeed to put Tadej Pogacar up where he needs to be. He wears the young riders jersey, by the way, the white jersey today. And so will they make it? That's the big question. And the point is nobody knows, Simon, and that is why they are chasing so hard. They've no idea. They can't look into the faces of these guys and work out just how tired they are.
No, all they'll be doing is getting regular checks from the team directors in the car over the race radio, giving updates about how far up the road the breakaway is, how well they're working together, so they know exactly how hard the teams on the front have to ride behind to try and reel these guys into a gap that they think they can close down on the final climb. We see Bilbao on screen now, rider number 115. Some fantastic riding from the Bahrain McLaren team. Obviously one of the big favourites from the stage being Dylan Teuns, and just sitting just a couple seconds behind him is Bilbao on GC. So having Bilbao in the breakaway has relieved the pressure from Team Bahrain McLaren behind in the bunch not to have to do any work. They're able to sit back, let Mitchelton Scott, Team UAE Emirates able to do all the work while they basically have a free ride to the climb.
Well, if Dylan Teuns can actually turn it on today, that will be spectacular for him. So many riders on the same time in the general classification, by the way, including Theo Gegenhardt, who, for the time being at least, Ineos have not actually suggested themselves as doing too much work on the front. There they are, just sitting tucked in behind Movistar. In fact, they have moved up just a little bit, but they're going to have their own ambitions by the time we get to the end of today. So all hell could break loose on the climb. I'm fully expecting it to be so. It's impossible to call at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to really come down to these final 5 kilometres of racing until we know who's going to be the crowned the winner of this year's Tour of Valencia. But yeah, it is still anybody's race. I think Pogacar is obviously still a big favourite. He's got some strong climbers in his team around him. Joe Dombrowski, we can see in the centre of screen there now, all wrapped up from his crashes a couple of days ago. He also has Pollens, a rider who was very active on stage 2, who's going to be a crucial teammate for Pogacar on this final climb.
Yeah, Dombrowski, the big rangy American, does some great work on the approaches, and they're all going to be called to do exactly that. Just look further back down here, CCC just starting to move up. Likewise, Fundación Orbea, they've got a couple that may well have a go today. Someone like Mikkel Bizkarra and indeed Ruben Fernandez. They're very capable and, of course, hyper knowledgeable of the terrain. Their problem is that most teams are based out here, as Simon Gerrans was just saying a few moments ago, and so they're very familiar with it. Time for a turn or a change of pace. It's Carboni that hits the front right now, and straight away Pello Bilbao is on his back wheel. They're not wrestling each other just yet. That will come a little bit later. Whatever alliances they've formed will be torn to shreds, I can tell you. No matter what they've signed, they will be wanting to win the day. But there's a lot of ambition sailing through behind them at the moment, and just trying to settle some nerves, I think, Mitchelton Scott on behalf of Jack Haig.
Yeah, I think we can see young Callum Scottson on the front of the bunch now, pushing the pace. A very talented young rider. Has incredible Pelmars on the track as well, but good to see him getting some race kilometres in the road team and supporting his leader for the day in Jack Haig. Grommel, another rider from Mitchelton Scott, up there pulling some terms along with Michael Albacini as well. So three formidable workers setting the pace there for Mitchelton Scott.
Just what you need. And there's a pressure that comes with help from your teammates as well, because the levels of expectation that you can do your part as well start fizzing in your own mind. You know what it's like, Simon. You're going to be up there, your whole team's working for you, they're emptying themselves on your behalf, and eventually the spotlight is going to have to fall on you, and today it's Jack Haig's opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Once Jack Haig hits his final climb, there's not much more his teammates are going to be able to do for him in that scenario, so they're laying it all out there for the moment, give him every chance to defend this leader's jersey that he earned by placing in front of Pogacar in yesterday's sprint.
Yeah, spectacular. So it's all down to position here. I think the lack of bonuses have made this race very exciting.
It's definitely made this very exciting to this point, but what will be interesting today is we see a number of riders finish on the same time again today, or across the finish line together. It will come down to stage placings in tomorrow's final, potentially sprint stage. So we're going to see the GC riders sprinting all out for the line.
Well, there were some bonuses supposedly up for grabs today. They were going to give some modest ones. Likewise, they said the same at the line in Culera, 3, 2 and 1 seconds, and then the organisers decided to strip those out. In a way, I'm pleased they did, because we'll get to tomorrow with potentially more than a handful of riders very much in the frame to take the victory. It's just a question of which position they finish in. So it's not about bonus seconds, it's about who you beat out there on the road. It could be a very busy place for our finale.
Yeah, it's shaping up for a hectic stage tomorrow as well, but I understand it was a very last-minute decision from the race direction to remove the time bonuses from stage 2 and stage 4, and at this point it's made the race a heck of a lot more interesting for us anyway.
It has, yeah, it's keeping it very much alive. So it's time then. We're making the turn, we're coming back to the coast, and then we loop out and we take on our, if you want loopy, then our crazy finale. Now, it's only 5 kilometres in length, but let's talk about the not the first 2 kilometres of our climb, but the last 3. It could be a day in hell for many.
It's going to be a finish from hell, that's for sure. So the research I did on this climb before we came on air today, looking at Strava, looking at the websites like VeloViewer, the record time up this climb is around 24 minutes of riding. So that's going to be a really slow final 5 kilometres of racing. But the hardest ramps are actually in the final few hundred metres, where the road turns to concrete, because I think when it gets as steep as what it is on this road, it's actually difficult to pour bitumen on those sort of gradients.
Yes, it is. So they've had to set it as concrete. You can't roll in asphalt, as you quite rightly say. You have to let concrete set, and even then, what you have to do to stop the concrete running away, you have to place upon it enormous pieces of wood, chipboard and plywood, so it dries underneath it. Unfortunately, then when you pull it off, it leaves ridges and ramps, and wherever you lay the next block of concrete, there's a ridge across it. Now, they have put in some trammels there to help grip of vehicles on such a steep incline, because we're talking 23% as a maximum. But the trouble is that makes for a very gnarly surface, a very heavy surface, and when you're going slow, it wears you down even more. So it's not going to be a pleasant place for the riders, but it's going to be royally entertaining for us. Who can cope I think that's essentially what we're going to be dealing with. 1:35 is the gap, so they found 25 seconds. The chasers on the group out front for now. Jack Haig looks nice and relaxed, doesn't he? That shows you what being protected can do for you.
Yeah, Jack Haig looking very comfortable there in the yellow leaders jersey. Fantastic for him to have the full support from his team, and he looks like he's relishing this great opportunity.
Yeah, don't you worry too much about these little ramplets that we've got. There's a few on the approach. I'd probably say they've got about 6 little climelets to do inside various little hamlets and towns along the way. Jack Haig, he doesn't exactly welcome the camera too much. I don't think he's wondering what to do with his face. It's a bit like coming through customs after a holiday. You put on your innocent face. At moments like this. Anyway, lucky for him, the camera has now drifted away. But yes, you end up looking more suspicious than ever. Can I open your bag, sir? There's nothing in there. There is Valverde. Now, can he find the kick that seemed to just be missing at the very last moment of Calera? Can he find it today?
But we see Tim de Klerk there rolling across the this intermediate sprint line and taking some points on the line. So I'm not sure if Tim has picked up any points at this point in the race, but yeah, he's picking up whatever points are on offer for the breakaway today. The remainder of the break looking very uninterested in those points.
Tim de Klerk, I was going to guess how tall he is, but he's 1.90 m. He looks rangier than that, to be honest. There are taller riders out there. Connor Dunn famously, of course, with the longest seat post in cycling. This is Altea, absolutely gorgeous, as you can indeed see. Just having a look at it right now. So, just beautiful, is it not? And the roads, of course, just unwinding in an anti-clockwise manner. Do you know why they unwind anti-clockwise?
No, I don't.
It's so that your sword hand, which is your right hand, if you're defending from the top, is away from the wall, and those coming up, they've got this wall to deal with. So yeah, it's from the old fighting days. You'd know all about that. Meanwhile, Tim de Klerk, it is rangy old devil that he is, that's driving him on at the moment. Still looks relaxed. Get some feet down here. This is for Carboni, Giovanni, and as you said, the main disadvantage for Giovanni is that he doesn't necessarily know the roads. I'm not sure how much knowledge is actually, maybe ignorance is bliss at a moment like this, because the roads up there are stinkers. If he's done Strada Bianchi, he should be all right. Yeah,
we said Carboni, he's dropped nearly 15 minutes to this point on the general classification, so I'm not sure why he would be that far down after 3 stages of racing, but maybe he got caught up in a crash or some kind of incident at some point. But that's basically going to mean that he is going to be thinking purely about today's stage as a one-off stage. He's not thinking about the GC at all. But we saw a couple of minutes ago, he's refueling there, getting some gels from his Director Sportif in the team car. Days like this, they wear you down. I think there's around 3,800 metres of elevation in a short 170-odd kilometre stage. So, yeah, nutrition is ever so important.
Yeah, and it may not be too warm today. It's okay. It's around 18 Celsius. But the complete absence of wind, I mean, it is properly still today. The only wind is being generated by the riders themselves. It's got a feeling of pre-storm about it. In fact, there's a horrible weather system coming into Northern Europe, as I'm sure many in the United Kingdom are indeed aware. Confirmation of our break. It's a shame they're not giving us our constant time gap, but it's coming down. My suspicion is it's probably it's still just over a minute with 24 kilometres to go. If they hit the bottom of the climb with a minute's advantage, you think, well, maybe that's not going to be enough over 5 kilometres. I think it would be, potentially, for Bilbao and maybe Greg van Avermaet and possibly Carboni. We shall see.
Yeah, I think 1 minute would not be enough even for these guys. After working hard all day long, driving this breakaway and having this to force this kind of advantage over the peloton, fresh legs on a steep climb like this can make all the difference. So for the peloton to actually roll in, the GC riders having sat back in the bunch, looking after themselves, like we saw what Jack Haig was doing just a few minutes ago, is a huge, huge advantage on a steep climb like up to today's finish line.
They have been busy, haven't they? And Carboni just getting a feed and a little bit of advice. at the moment. Well, you saw Jack Haig almost freewheeling, and the yellow jersey there in probably about position 12, is he? With a couple of teammates just in front of him and 2 others actually pushing on the pace as we speak. It's interesting to see who's getting interested as well. For James Knox, Deceuninck Quickstep are now starting to just make sure that they don't miss out on anything. They have Tim de Klerk up the road. Not quite sure whether they've got the full belief in him. We shall wait and see.
We also see Astana now starting to contribute to the chase behind as well, and they're probably doing that just so their team leaders can sit a little bit closer to the front of the peloton and not forgo the battle that it requires to hold good position. And it's good to see that they're still backing Izagirre, the defending champion.
Yeah, I saw Ben Swift there as well with the doing part of the approach work for Theo Gegenhardt. I wonder if Gianni Moscon, he was my call on the second stage. He faded to 8th, but he had a dig very late on. Just kind of, I guess he had to go then. He couldn't leave it till the very last. I don't think he'd have had the beating of Pogacar or indeed Valverde at that point, but nonetheless, it's great to see that the ambition was there. I think the ramp at the end of today might be a bit too much for him, although I have seen him win in such circumstances. So don't count him out. Well, the gauze here, which protects the buds which will become fruit from the frosts that you still get in this part of the world. In fact, it's been quite chilly, hasn't it? 16 Celsius the first couple of days, 18 feels a big leap.
Yeah, perfect racing conditions, as you said, not a breath of wind and moderate temperatures, so none of these riders are really rugged up. No one's got arm warmers on hardly, or leg warmers in particular. So yeah, really perfect early season conditions for racing for these guys.
Yeah, I'm just looking through. There's usually some softy who's got both. Oh, there we are. And it is calling him out. It's poor Sakbu Gourmet feeling the cold. He's got long sleeves on, as you can see. Those are the only long sleeves I can see in the whole of the peloton at the moment. 22 kilometers then from home. Still we roll with the punches. We're going to take ourselves a brief break so we don't miss any of the action when we indeed get to our final climb today. Looking forward to it, I have to say. 1:21, they're holding station nicely, but at what cost? They're putting a lot into this. Well, we're rolling through these rather spectacular roads here. It's wonderful, isn't it? You see there's been a bit of money in this part of the world for quite some time. There's a lot of very successful agriculture. Oh, some orange groves on the left there. Don't worry, we're not going hydroponics today because there's too much going on. 19 kilometers to go. 1:07 is the gap. Thank goodness they've decided to post it for us now. Let's hope that time stays permanent. The shadow's quite sharp today. Not much movement, as you can see. There's not much breeze out there at all, save from the downdraft of the helicopter. And these guys, they're kind of biding their time. I think they're winding them in rather nicely, to be honest. And it looks, you've just got to basically have made the catch before we get to the 5Ks to go mark. It's as simple as that. So who from this group are going to be tempted to go? It looks like Tim de Klerk is now looking for a little bit more support and maybe a little bit more energy. Suddenly picking it up, as you can see, Van Hooijdonk in for CCC comes through. That's Pello Bilbao that's on the front at the moment for Bahrain McLaren. And almost centred within this group are a couple of the favourites from it. Greg Van Avermaet there and Pello Bilbao. Surely between the pair of them, let's wait and see if it is going to be from this group. Somebody's going to hit out from them, is going to be tempted to take the bait, possibly too early, and that could be the destruction of the break. It's always a balancing act, isn't it, as to when to go for it.
Yeah, we see Tim de Klerk putting in a little acceleration off the front of the breakaway here today as they go over these last few undulations with around 13 kilometres left to race before the climb. Before we see this final run in, here we go, Carboni. He's cracked from the back of the breakaway. The acceleration from de Klerk has broken his legs as the remaining 5 breakaway companions power on.
The pesky de Klerk has put Carboni to the sword, so it's getting rather more select, I think it's fair to say. Van Hooijdonk and Van Avermaet, of course, Belgian, as is de Klerk himself. So it's a Belgo-Spanish quintet that we have for you right now. Pello Bilbao, it says Pello Lopez, but we know who it is. Pello Bilbao, and there he is. And looks sprightly, I must say. The way he goes, just a change of tempo, hiding in full view, you might say, and Van Avermaet's not going to let this get away. Calls for Van Hooijdonk just to sort of make sure he keeps the wheel of Bilbao. Bilbao just very aware, just has a check over his shoulder just to see how close everyone is to him. Fully now aware that the day is drawing to a close. 17 kilometres. Indeed, 12 before they get to the climb. So we're going to be on the climb proper before you know it. This is another one of those little rises that we get into these what were tiny little citadels in this part of the world. Always been very verdant and indeed fertile, this area, historically speaking. And as a result, there's been a lot of money in this part of the world ever since, and even more these days now that Simon Gerrans has started to, buy his villas and things like that. Where'd you park your helicopter?
No, left the helicopter elsewhere today. But yeah, as they crest this final ascent, I think it would probably be the first time that the peloton would have been able to see the break just in front of them, because from here on it's basically slightly down and flat all the way to the beginning of this final ramp from 5 kilometres out.
So we're going to squeeze in another break very, very quickly so that we can leave this final ascent for you to enjoy. So the sleeping policemen doing their job here, supposed to be traffic calming. Nothing calm about this this band of brothers at the moment. Carboni might get back on, but I think his day is done. He's done an awful lot of work, and I kind of felt in I guess the exception to the rule here. It's you've got to be Spanish or Belgian, it seems, to be in the break right now. It doesn't matter who you are, though. Most of the teams know these roads very, very well. It's training ground time. And here comes the chase. It's down to 49 seconds. So if the break is going to make it, they're going to have to pull out something exceptional, because the leaders of the leader of the race, Jack Haig, and in fact many others with options on the title, are stalking their prey at the moment. We'll take that break. We'll be back in a moment. It's the last one before the line. Welcome back. Frantic dash for the line, and they're mobbing the road, as you can see. So we're just wondering whether that ticker is correct, because I think it's been stuck on 16 for a little while. So if the ticker's failed, we may well be on the climb before we know it. It's only 5 kilometres in length, so it seems to be stuck on 16 for the time being. Let's wait and see if it does change at any point. No overtaking, says the sign. Well, at the moment, these guys haven't been moved by. They're just circulating beautifully, and indeed keeping the pack in abeyance. And so they are starting a couple of the welcoming ramps that will draw us inexorably to our close. So yeah, it seems to be stuck on 16, our ticker here, unfortunately. So anybody's guess as to where they are. What we do know is that these guys are indeed charging them down. As you can see, it has just clicked to 15, so I'm hoping that maybe somebody is aware. There was 2Ks out yesterday, don't forget, and indeed the day before as well, by the time we got to the sprint, so I think it's a bit of guesswork going on. Meanwhile, these guys can't afford to do that. I'm hoping that the gap's right. 50 seconds near enough, 49 as it stands at the moment. Let's see how long that remains, shall we, as they take on these opening ramps. If you think this is tough, wait till you see the end. 23.9%, I think, is the maximum gradient they're going to be dealing with on the way to the line. They're going to feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to feel it. This break, we saw it just a second ago, still working really well together at front of screen. And now we can flash back to the bunch where it's now more bunched up at the front. It's no longer single file with everybody happy to sit back in line. With 10 kilometres to go to the opening slopes of the final climb, we see all the teams trying to drag their leaders towards the front to make sure they're well placed for that crucial turn onto the narrow roads of the climb. Yeah,
Gregor, the Dane here, along with Contreras, the sacrificial lambs, I think, for Astana, just pushing on at the front. This is for Jon Izagirre, we remind you, who's on the same time as the leader, Jack Haig. Those riders on the same time. Here they come. It's Jack Haig, of course, from Mitchelton Scott, Tadej Pogacar from United Arab Emirates, who's got Jan Palance to help him out today. Alejandro Valverde, Spanish champion from Movistar, who has some great background riders here, like Marc Soler, who could even have a dig himself, potentially. Plenty of others as well, with some real climbing talent. Ruben Fernandez also very much still in the mix. He could have a dig today as well from Fondación Orbea, the incarnation of indeed Euskaltel. He's got Bizcarra who can help him in the climbs. He's on the same time as the leader, Fernandez. Dylan Toons, we remind you as well, from Bahrain McLaren. Likewise, he's got Pello Bilbao up the road, of course, but Toons is the man. Jon Izagirre isn't in the break. He's Astana. They're the ones who are putting on most of the hurt at the moment. And Theo Gegenhardt, we remind you, likewise from Team Ineos, who've had a quiet day so far and about to get very, very loud, as is the terrain. So there are the hares, if you like, and the hounds, not that far in arrears. There they are. So they have sight of them once they just clear this last little bit of palms, and then they'll see them disappear at the top of the road as they take a turn and start to head for the high ground. 14 kilometres from home, and if you think the pace has been knocked back now, just wait. It's going to be about walking pace, isn't it, by the time that we get to the top?
You really have to feel for the big riders that have been out there in the breakaway all day long today. Guys like Tim de Klerk, he's been working hard, driving this breakaway, getting a really good workout in, and then he's got to lug himself up these 20% gradients to complete the stage and get to the finish line. Yeah,
it's not a big man's game, this. But as you look down, then you see that they are just about starting to settle themselves into colour order, which means that they have their duty roster actually now in place. There's a few dropping off the back, aren't there? Those just drifting back from Team UAE off the front. And meanwhile, the pace has been picked up yet again by Pello Bilbao. Now, he's 10 seconds down on that leading group of riders who are on the same time. 7 riders on the same time. Then there's Matej Mohoric, who's on 2 seconds in adrift. Jan Palance and Greg Van Avermaet are both on 5 seconds down. Dan Martin's only 7 seconds down with Gianni Moscon. Marc Soler is at 8 seconds down, and Pello Bilbao is at 10 seconds. So you can tell from that it's very, very tight in a race with no bonus seconds at the line, and it's opened this absolutely. It's blown it wide open in terms of who possibly could win. And as Simon Gabriels was saying, it could be that we go to Valencia tomorrow, and how you finish on the finish line will determine how the title is decided. The yellow jersey, there it is on your screen right now. Mitchelton Scott's Jack Haig wears it, but courtesy of his finishing positions, and the pace is changing here. And Luis Leon Sanchez, always a great engine to drive on the pack. He's gone to the front. This is for Jon Izagirre, his teammate, and he's sitting in position 4 at the moment. He's got a wingman behind him as well, just looking after him. Alejandro Valverde starting to make a move as well, also being traced on one of the Astana team. It's happening. 36 seconds, 11k to go. We'll be slamming into the foot of this climb very, very soon.
Yeah, with the pace really heating up here with only 10 kilometres to go the race, you can see the breakaway is thinned down by one more rider. They've lost Serrano off the back of the break. As we scan back to the bunch here, Astana in the light blue jersey pulling with the Mitchelton Scott riders in 2nd and 3rd position. It's Chris Juhl Jensen sitting in 2nd position, pushing that big gear. He'll be looking to lead the peloton onto this climb and place Jack Haig ready to follow those initial attacks. As a team leader, it's always difficult to know leading into these climbs whether you spend your energy getting to the front to make sure that you're well placed, or you conserve and sit back a little bit further so you are that little bit fresher leading into the climb itself.
Making a big move on the left-hand side of the road amongst the main body of the peloton, Theo Gegenhardt and Team Ineos guiding Theo into position to have a go. 9 kilometres in 4k's time we start our climb. Now, don't worry too much about the opening 2 kilometres. There are some nasty hairpins within it which will look very steep, but they are as nothing as to when the ticker says 3 to go, I beg your pardon. That's when it really starts to hurt. Everyone knows this is the time. This is where the big turn onto the climb comes. Indeed, it's time to be in a decent position. You can see the British champion there, Ben Swift, also very much part of the approach. A lot of the fastmen have made it into this juncture so far. Fabio Jakobsen, the Netherlands champion, is still there, working for James Knox, the Brit, for De Koning Quickstep today, potentially. Let's wait and see. 9 kilometres to go. That should have ticked by. I'm hoping that we don't get a stall on that, because the pace is outstanding. We've been hitting 60 plus kilometers per hour for about the last 5 kilometers. We're still at around about that pace. They may well give us a speedo in a few moments time, but here comes Greg van Avermaet, hits the front right now. His teammate Van Hooijdonk just comes off the front. Great time trialist, and he's been really the engine room of the break. Just hoping for Greg that he doesn't get mugged here by Pio Bilbao, who's still very much there for Bahrain Merida. Bahrain themselves, not quite sure how much belief they've got. They're just starting to think about mustering, and indeed having another dig. They've got other fish to fry, both with Wout Poels, Dylan Teuns as well, by the time that we get to our climb. Now we'll be slamming into it very, very quickly. A lot of movement down there, a lot of options being taken, and finally Israeli Startup Nation make a move. This is for Dan Martin and potentially Danny Navarro, who may well be a great right-hand man for Dan, the Irishman, by the time we get there. Meanwhile, these guys are still out front. It's a shame we haven't got that timing gaps for you as a constant. Greg van Avermaet takes a big wipe of the old nose here. He won't be concerned about sartorial elegance. He is a brute when he gets to moments such as this, and he takes his golden bike and golden helmet up to the fore, and it's Tim de Klerk that's in his wake just for now. 8Ks it says. I think it's possibly a little bit less than that. Opening ramps, little downhill section, does tell us we're not quite on the climb, so maybe it is indeed running correct. So here we go then, Tony.
Here we go. It's still anybody's race from the peloton. I think we can anticipate to see the break get eaten up on the opening slopes of the final climb. We've seen Team Ineos now on the left-hand side of the road in their red and black jerseys. Who will they be working for today? Is it Teo Guggenhardt, the best placed rider on GC, or maybe Gianni Moscon just a couple of seconds back?
Well, Gianni can go for it, but he just kind of ran out of juice, didn't he? He was the chosen son when we went up to Culera. It may well be he's allowed to have another go today. Let's wait and see how good he is. I thought that was him just drifting back off the front, to be honest, but maybe in error. Me, that is. 8 kilometers, it says, and we've still got these flatter sections at the moment with little dips. Once we hit 5 to go, we shouldn't have anything other than climbing, and some of it extremely significant. I don't even think there's any respite areas within it. Nothing downhill, that's for sure. So whenever you see them just drifting down, you know we're not quite on the climb just yet. Rolling through is Tim de Klerk. James Knox, apparently their chosen man for De Koning Quickstep. Tim looks too rangy to actually drag his frame, substantial as it is, up this incline that faces these riders. And still we look back. I keep expecting the peloton to pop into view, but it hasn't yet.
Well, I think the riders are going so fast at this pace. We're probably seeing speeds in excess of 60 kilometres an hour. There's actually quite a distance, but not so much of a time gap between the breakaway and the peloton. I'll be interested to see which team takes control of the bunch and leads it on the opening slopes of the climb. And I expect that to be Team Ineos. We see now Ben Swift in the National Champions jersey taking Teo Guggenhardt up towards the front of the bunch and nicely placing him in the first sort of 5 positions.
CCC are on guarding duties as well. As you can see, they've got a couple of riders up the road, but Demarchi, Victor de la Part, Serge Pals, Michael Shah, they're all getting involved just to kind of watch out for those who try and disrupt, I think, possibly the chase. Let's wait and see. Here's your big turn, and indeed the pennant says it all. They've stripped out. This is your 5Ks to go, so they reset the clock, and here we are climbing already then and slamming straight into it. And if you think this is steep, then you just wait. It is going to get very, very painful. They've still got the vehicles in the gap, you know, and there's not much space for them to pull over. One has here, but that's neutral service that's going to look after these guys. And it's Tim de Klerk that hits it first. The man who's done his job is Nathan van Hooijdonk. He drifts back, leaving, of course, Greg van Avermaet there. And, of course, naturally, in his wheel is Peo Bilbao. The rest of the pack about to come through any minute now. And here they are, sailing into it. CCC on the front, just trying to disturb matters so that Greg van Avermaet's got a great chance of making it count. And they compress as the road narrows here. And at least for the time being, they're playing with asphalt. When they get to the top, it's all about concrete, and that's not very pleasant to ride upon. Big move coming right now from Bahrain. This is Volta's Dylan Teuns, I think, having a go. Let's wait and see. 5K to go, and this is his quarry. Greg Van Avermaet sets a tempo. Tim de Klerk staying with them in the pale blue of De Koenig Quickstep for now. Meanwhile, Pello Bilbao with the gold accents to his kit here. Not the bright golden helmet of Greg Van Avermaet, you understand, but the yellow, tangerine and black of Bahrain McLaren. Well, we're getting the data on it. It'd be nice to just stay with the pictures, quite frankly. 33 seconds. If that gap is real, then they've got a chance. And it's a strange thing to say, half a minute with 5Ks to go, but let's wait and see, shall we? It could well be enough, despite the inclines that we're going to be dealing with, especially for someone like Pello Bilbao. What a result it would be for him if he manages to steal it. That is Nathan van Hooydonk just drifting back right now, having done his job, and it's Movistar that's setting the pace. This is for Alejandro Valverde. Ben Swift's doing a job here for Team Ineos, and in fact just tucked in behind him is Theo Geoghegan-Hart. So let's wait and see if he can deliver something. No movement whatsoever in the trees here and the branches thereon. There is no wind, and that's a blessing today as they disappear into this arboreal cover, and the motorcycles being called out of the gap. The snap has the VIPs, the security. They have to get away from these guys because suddenly, presumably, we're going to start seeing the chasers in a few moments' time. They have to get over to the right-hand side of the road, the riders, and allow security to come through. They won't want to be there for too long, and the rest of them need to get by when they can, quite frankly, because they've got a race to engage with. It's a hard call. The security boys do their job. They make everything secure for the riders to come through, so they are an essential part of the race. They're not a nuisance. They are very much part of what makes racing possible. Little chat going on at the moment. I don't know, there's a look in the face from Pello Bilbao to see what Greg Van Avermaet's demeanour is like. What could he read from that?
Yeah, it's hard to say what these guys would be discussing at this early stage in the climb, but as we see, there's a couple of sort of flatter slopes in the first 2 kilometres of climbing before things really ramp up in the last 3Ks. Bilbao looking very comfortable, as does Van Avermaet. Big Tim de Klerk has done a lot of the work in the opening kilometre, so he looks like he's really starting to pay the price for that now.
Yeah, he's pulling his mouth wide open. He could eat a pie in one, I think. But yeah, it looks like he is indeed grimacing. No surprise at all. Well, if he's hurting now, he's going to be very, very, very much uncomfortable by the time we get to the end here. Here come the gang of chasers, and it looks like it's being led at the moment by Ben Swift, who's doing a fantastic job of teeing this one up, we presume, for Theo Geoghegan-Hart. But stranger things have happened. It may well be that there are others here who might have a dig. Theo, of course, is on the same time as our leader, so it would make sense for them to put all their oranges in that particular box. 4 kilometres to go, 3 very soon, and this is where it starts to pick up and we start to hit our first wraps of 20%, and Greg looks to be in fine form. He gave a little smile earlier on, but it looks like the dying moments of this breakaway. Pello Bilbao, I think, had a chat to say, look, I'm just about spent. That's my guess anyway. He goes. Pello looks like he's going backwards. Wasn't to be him. He's not the chosen son for Bahrain McLaren, I don't think, and the pack are coming, but Greg Van Avermaet hits out. This is fantastic. This is the sort of bravery we see from this man. He's got guts and verve, and he's showing it.
Yeah, Greg Van Avermaet would have waited for the first really steep slopes of the climb to make his move on the breakaway. We go back to the bunch now, and Ben Swift leading the way. Kwiatkowski in second position with Geoghegan-Hart sitting nicely in third place. Jack Haig still looking really comfortable and really well placed, riding really maturity beyond his years.
Greg Van Avermaet, you can't take it away from the man. It looks like de Klerk gave his very last burst there. Picking it back up is Pello Bilbao, getting bridge over to Greg Van Avermaet. Let's wait and see. Swift it is that leads these guys for the time being. Theo Geoghegan-Hart at the back of that trio. There's Dan Martin just on the shoulder here, or the back wheel, I should say, of the leader for now. Jack Haig from Michelton Scott, who's burnt his teammates so far. Wearing number 1 is Jon Izagirre, defending champion there, just tucked in, and indeed plenty of others as well. But Greg Van Avermaet still has the head. Well, can he use it? That's the big question as we hit the major ramps, and there's virtually no respite from now on in.
No, from here on, well, from 3 kilometres to the finish, the ramps just get steeper and steeper to the final few hundred metres of climb. We have all the favourites really nicely placed at the front of the peloton. We saw Valverde, we saw Dylan Teuns, we saw Kwiatkowski in the front there. Wool pulls a little bit further back.
Yeah, just checking out here, we've got Ruben Fernandez from Fundación Orbea in the bright orange of the Fundación team. Meanwhile, the orange of CCC with the gold accents here. Greg van Avermaet is still giving it plenty. GBH from GVA, I think you might say, as we look back to Pello Bilbao, who's still managing to hold on to his coattails. They're making a good fist of it, this pair.
Yes, these guys are still working really hard. Obviously, they want to survive for as long as they can on this climb. I can see Greg van Avermaet, even if he is caught from the bunch, he's going to race all the way to the finish. He's a guy, he's a racer, he loves this stuff, and he's going to give everything he's got.
Dogged defines the man, I think, in terms of how he imposes himself on a bike race. It seems that he's able to park pain, which is a great skill if you happen to be a professional bike rider. And of course, he's one of the best, hence the golden helmet, and indeed all the plaudits that we have given him over the years. Still, we're stuck on 4 kilometres. It'd be nice if they gave us a metre count here, but the meters get eaten into very, very slowly. The gearing on the bikes here has to be adapted for what is punishing terrain. At least they know it, so they know what is expected. But goodness me, expectation is one thing, reality sometimes is another. 3 kilometres to the top, and finally just a little bit of respite. Not a great deal. It'll wham straight back into the 18, 19, 20, all the way up to 23% today. He's setting a fantastic tempo.
He certainly is. He looks like he's really controlling his effort here now. He's pushing a light gear whenever possible on the flatter slopes of the climb, getting back up out of his seat and dancing on the pedals to get over the steeper ramps. Looking very, very in control, and like I've said earlier, I'm sure he would have ridden this climb in training over the past month or two, so he'll know exactly what's to come.
What have we got? 18 minutes, a little bit less than that perhaps. What's the Strava record on this one?
I looked at the Strava, and it looks like it's about 24 minutes of climbing for the faster times up there. So I expect,
for the full 5K?
Yeah, that's for the 5K. So I expect these guys to go a little bit quicker than that in race pace here today. So yeah, still plenty of time to come.
And options starting to open up, as not for Pello Bilbao, though. He is just about to be reabsorbed by the looks of things. Not reaching out for glory, but setting that tempo from the old Sky days. Now Team Ineos following exactly the same, of course. It's about just feathering in your effort, matching the expected power outputs. A lot of people very disquieted by that, I think. Describing that kind of riding as robotic. However, it's incredibly effective, and in fact everyone rides to numbers these days, don't they?
Well, I think when you're in a situation like this, you're not looking at your numbers anymore. You're racing the race as it comes to you. If the bunch accelerates, you've got to accelerate with it. If you lose contact with the pack at this stage of the race, it's very difficult to come back again. As we see the bunch getting whittled down, Marc Soler dropping off the back as the front bunch becomes even more select of the slightest climbers of the race.
Nobody's gone Maverick just yet, but we're about to see it, and I'm just wondering whether it's who it's going to be. David de la Cruz, I think, is going to do some softening up for UAE in the pale jerseys to the left-hand side of the road as you look at it. So right-hand side as we see it right now. Just starting to stamp on those pedals ever so slightly, and that's Tadej Pogačar. Also there, and he's coming through as well. Teo going for it, and here goes Pogačar. He's going for a long ranger on this kind of terrain, and who, we ask the question, has got what it takes to follow him, and the answer possibly is absolutely nobody. He has flown the coop right now, so there it is, gauntlet thrown down upon the road, this man taking control.
Pogačar has done an acceleration here with 3 kilometers to go, with a long way still to race. He obviously has a lot of confidence in his ability to go all the way to the finish line. Teo Goggenhardt taking up the chase with Will Pulls and Dylan Toons stuck on his wheel.
Yeah, already with the gap, probably 10 bike lengths and a little bit more, and it seems with every pedal stroke he's extending it. 2 kilometers to go, and Tadej Pogačar, what a phenomenal talent. Well, he wears the young rider's jersey, and that tells you a lot about the man himself. Has he got an amazing future? Of course he has, but the first pages of that are being written here. Not even the first pages, I should say. We've been aware of him for quite some time, but whenever you see him make these moves, and especially in this kind of company, doesn't matter what what part of the season it is. There is Jonas Aguirre as well in the blue of Astana, and they're trying their best out of the saddle. They'll have a go. They'll try and get there, but whether they can is anybody's guess. There's the leader. That's Jack Haig with the yellow jersey. Also wants to come and join the fun, and still that gap maintains. It's foreshortening of the camera here. They're going to give it the best shot, though, just to try and wind it up. Is it Wout Poels that's on his case? 2 kilometres to go, but Tadej Pogačar has at least made it very, very selective, and you feel that you've got to put your money on him to go again.
Yes, we saw Dan Martin dancing across a little gap to the front group there a second ago, as Jack Haig looked like he's starting to struggle for the first time in this race. So a real shame for the young Australian rider if he's not able to stay with the favourites here. Is Aguirre looking very comfortable as well with that select group of 4 riders chasing down Pogačar?
Yeah, just not taking a flyer yet is Aguirre. In fact, he's just had a feed, which shows a great deal of consciousness about how he's going to take on the rest of today. Dan Martin, we remind you, finished in 4th place up to Culera, and it could be a Dan Martin kind of day, but only one feels if there's a stall from this man, Tadej Pogačar, who has gone again. He's factoring in his moves, but there's a whiff of flair about this man and the way he imposes himself on a bike race, and it's an absolute joy to watch. And he stretches his legs yet again, and you find yourself looking back and looking for somebody to match his cadence. Yeah,
I know Team UAE Emirates weren't putting a huge amount of pressure on this young rider leading into this edition of the Tour of Valencia. He's come off a strong training block, done some altitude training, so being a young rider, they weren't sure how he was going to come out of that altitude stint leading into these early season races, but he's showing time and time again the class that he has, and able to start the season at this level of racing is quite impressive.
Certainly is. Stays planted. The chasers here, 2 from Bahrain Merida. It's Wout Poels and then Dylan Turns. As you can see as well, we also have Ineos involved here very much so with Theo Gegenhardt, and I think it's I think as well we've had Gianni Moscon just been left behind right now. Dan Martin stays with it. There is Jon Izagirre as well. There's Jack Haig wearing the yellow jersey, and I think Fernandez it is from Fondacion as well, on good form. It could be Vizcarra actually. I'll wait and see. And here is Valverde, not wanting this to get away from him at the moment. It's getting away from everybody with Tadej Pogačar. They've responded and held the gap, but you feel that he's the most capable of sustaining this drive as others start to fade in his wake. What a fantastic move.
It's a great move, but a very confident one with over 3 kilometres left to race to attack that far out on a climb this steep. We saw he got a really good initial gap, but it looks like the chasers have kind of held the distance for the last 500 metres or more.
Certainly have. Let's see if they can pair him back, but nobody taking advantage. There's sort of a coping pace when it gets to be this steep. When you hit 23 and 24%, really it's about just how you are able to ride it. Not it's almost like will has to be parked to one side, but well, this man has got so much about him. Almost not a dismissive look back, but not a look back with fear. He just wants to make sure he's hitting the marks, and of course he's marking everyone around him for the time being. You have to feel sorry for those who are in his wake.
Yeah, at this stage he still looks relatively comfortable, and that he has still one more potential acceleration to get to the finish line. Dan Martin riding back onto the wheel of Wout Poels here, who is I imagine in service of Dylan Tuns. We saw Wout Poels lose a little bit of time on stage 2 up the explosive ramp to the finish line. This climb being a bit longer, a lot more consistent, will suit Poels much more so.
Well, they've looks like they've laid a new surface on here. We're waiting for concrete to suddenly rear its head. Have they been out in the night time and smartened it up? You can see the concrete underneath. It looks like they've put a feather of asphalt across the top. Here's Valverde just getting onto Oscar Rodriguez's wheel, but still Pogačar stays there, and indeed a final kilometre. We're onto it right now. There's your Flamme Rouge, and this man can now start to stretch his legs. The most punishing inclines are right towards the end, and it's Dan Martin that engages the chase here. He's come out of the pack. Theo Gegenhardt is there. In his wake is Walt Pauls for with the yellow accents of Bahrain McLaren. Where's Jack Haig just getting onto this group as well, but it could be minor positions for them. And Pogacar still pushes on in this final K.
Great riding there from Jack Haig. It looked like he was getting distance just a kilometre or so ago, but he's ridden back to the group of favourites and still looks like he's able to hang on. Obviously now with the yellow jersey on his shoulders and 1 kilometre left to race, he's going to give absolutely everything he's got to stay with this front group.
Well, the power of the jersey, and we often talk about it. Dan Martin at the moment is the man who's, well, nobody's having fun out there, and Pogacar picks it up, just steals a little bit of aero, I think, from the motorcycle as it went by. Very wise, but here comes Dan Martin on this ramp incline. He looks like he may well be gaining ground on Tadej Pogacar. Looks like he may well just be starting to struggle. He's staying seated at the moment, however. Dan Martin out of the saddle, just rocking all over the bike at the moment, but he's gaining ever so slightly on Tadej. Plonks back down in the saddle, hasn't had a look back, and maybe it will be with worry, and he does so right now. Just starts to wave, trying to thread a high ground of Andorra. Finally we hit the concrete right now, the last few 100 meters, and some real hurt. Now it's concrete because it's difficult to lay asphalt at these kind of angles, but here comes Dan Martin, and just look at him go. This is fantastic. What will the gap be between he and indeed Pogacar by the time we get to the line? It's taken a long time for this kilo to unwind, isn't it? And Wout Poels is not finished either.
Yeah, Wout Poels is still there, very much in contention. I didn't think he was going to be a big contender for today's stage. We see the defending champion in Izagirre getting dropped off the group of favourites. Jack Haig still in there with a fighting chance, doing everything he can to maintain a podium position. Well,
Poels trying to get onto the back wheel of Dan Martin, just comes out of the saddle, stalls ever so slightly. Still Pogacar grinds on within touching distance, it looks like, but it's enough of a gap for him to hold all the way, and still he does so. Fantastic. Just now not bothering to look back, he's just looking as to where the road starts to turn. Gentle right-hander for him to deal with right now. A whole group of twists and turns along the way, as well as the incline to deal with, and still he's the master of it, and indeed of his own destiny by the looks of things. We look further back, we're waiting for others to start to show themselves. Well, Poels has got onto the back wheel of Dan Martin. You can see the front wheel almost lifting up as he stays planted in the seat and tries to get the drive on. That's how steep it is. There's Jack Haig, there's Theo Gegenhardt as well. Dylan Toon's also in the mix. A helicopter hanging around to show you the suffering, but this man is out there in front. He's put his nose ahead. He did it on stage 2, was favourite for today, and he's got 400 metres before he crosses the line. Will he be alone? Will they get back to him? It's a very modest margin, but it's still a margin nonetheless. Yeah, I think that should be just enough. Oh, Paul's attacking Dan Martin here. It's interesting to see every time one of these riders puts in a strong acceleration, in seconds later they pay the price on these steep gradients. It looks like Wout Poels is just behind Pogacar, but I think he has a good enough gap to hold right to the finish now. Pogacar is going to be challenged here by Wout Poels. He's starting to stretch his legs. He's caught Dan Martin. He's giving one last very deep dig right now. Let's wait and see. He'll come round with a faster cadence, I think, from Pogacar, but he's got what it takes to make it to the line. 100 metres still to go. He's out of the saddle. He's starting to play with the bike, really, as he's been playing with the entire pack today. This is brilliant. One man now is going to set himself atop the standings. He'll be solo. There'll be gaps declared. Dan Martin's coming back into it. Jack Hager likewise. Theo Gegenhardt, there's a podium up for grabs here, but Tadej Pogacar is going to be on the top step, and that is a top performance today. Absolutely outstanding. Rounds to the finish, and chapeau to him. Count back. 3. There you are. There's your clock rolling right now. 3 seconds is my guess. 5 indeed as Wout Poels crosses the line. and they're having to pull them away just to clear it. Jack Haig almost coming to a stop. Still the incline there. And my goodness, what a finish that was. Absolutely brilliant to work. Dylan Turns comes to the line right now, but take nothing away from Tadej Pogacar. That was genius. Izagiri crosses over, defending champion. He'll be seeing that title drift away. What a winner today.
Incredible winner today. And if you look back, I think the stage placings were up for grabs. Teo Guggenhardt may be crossing the line in second or third position, which should put him in the same place on the general classification. Incredible ride by the young British rider. Great to see Jack Haig battling along there to stay within contact. Fugu, his yellow jersey to Pogacar, but a gallant fight all the same.
Very much so. This is James Knox with a creditable performance today. The young man hits the line and gets pushed away, and here's Valverde. Well, he's there's some holes finally opening up in the armour of the former world champion. Spanish champion crosses the line and almost has to be helped to his back wheel to cross the line. The front wheel is what counts. But it shows you just how steep it is. The helpers here almost falling back down the mountain. This man can head off with pride once everyone has arrived, because there's only one road up here, and he owns it. Wonderful. Well, strong performances today. Jean Bull, I beg your pardon, this is Serge Powell hits the line. Jean Bull just behind. 1 minute and 50 is our gap now to these guys. So some big fissures opening up in the timings in the general classification. One man atop the standings, and you're looking at him. A well-deserved drink. Cheers, my friend. We talk about talent, and I know it's not been revealed today, but his class most certainly has been underscored, hasn't it? That was amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Effort for this first race of the season to come in and start this 2020 season at such a high level. You only have to look at the quality of bike riders, just the places behind him, to see that the level of this race is at an absolute world class. You can see in slow motion here the back wheels chattering on the trammels of the concrete that's been laid down, and indeed a well-deserved warming blanket, and indeed top here. A young man with stars in his eyes, but he is one all on his own. Absolutely wonderful. Finished it as well as he started it, that climb. There was no time that he faded. No, not at all. I thought it was a bold move to attack as far out as he did with 3 kilometres left to race, which is probably still 12 minutes or more of racing. But he held he forged an initial gap, and he was able to hold that consistently all the way to the line. I don't think the gap increased too much as the climb went on from that point, but it was only that initial acceleration to all he needed to do. What a day, what a race, and it'll be, looks like podium positions only up for grabs tomorrow as we head to Valencia to draw this terrific race to a close. You know, there was a hiatus in the Comunitat Valenciana for a few years, financial crisis and all that did for many races. Kwiatkowski coming to the line in a few moments' time. There he is, just riding the headland, and indeed a spirited performance by Ben Swift as well. Shake of the head for him, knowing that Teo Guggenhardt didn't quite make it today. But yeah, so pleased that this race rediscovered itself and planted itself at this juncture as part of the season, because it is a spectacular one. It's a wonderful part of the world, and a lot of the riders don't have to travel far to engage with it. They're at home, for goodness sake. Here is our winner and leader.
Not just because of the climb, also because we had 15 guys inside the 15 seconds and also like 20 inside the 30 seconds. So what was the plan of the team this morning?
Yeah, because of a really hard stage, we decided to work on the front in the second part of the stage, and yeah, just to drive me under the climb to start in the front. So yeah, guys did really good job, and then Jan did a really good pull in the climb. So when he stopped, I just accelerate, attacked, and full gas to the end.
How was this climb? You decided to attack almost in the hardest part of it.
Yeah, it was the steepest part of the climb. But yeah, I guess it was just it was building up in all the part before. The pace was really hard, and then in the steepest part I felt the best. So then I just tried to attack, but then it was quite long to the top, but I managed it.
How does it feel, this second victory?
It's really amazing feeling. Because of all the preparation in the winter, this is really something special to win twice and to have leader jersey.
Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow. You know, so much has fallen to him. The world seems to be at his feet. He's an absolute superstar when it comes to the GC. How he translates that when he starts to push on for a Grand Tour wins, which many think will come his way, us included. Let us wait and see. He won the Algarve last year, Amgen Tour of California likewise, Tour de l'Avenir the year before that, and here he's come up against some proper opposition. Not that it wasn't the case in those other races, but he's left everyone in his wake here, and it's a wake-up call to all. Wow, Simon Gerrans, we've got one stage still to come, but the racing so far has been wonderful, hasn't it?
Been a fantastic short tour of racing. I think with one stage to come, the top spot in the GC is basically decided, but a great day for the sprinters again tomorrow, and maybe some stage placings up for grabs for the remaining podium for GC, because we saw a number of riders cross the finish line together today. So no time bonuses. These guys could be racing for podium spots.
I think so. And a worthy one, but albeit in the wake of our champion, who all bar crowned, Tadej Pogačar. What a rider he is. The man from Slovenia is in dominant form, and woe betide anyone who ever takes him lightly. You know, we've known about him for a couple of years now, but he keeps taking these steps forwards, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at his Palmars already as a young rider, and it is most impressive. For me, the most impressive result we saw from him last season was his podium finish in the Tour of Spain. To finish on the podium, I think basically in his first year professional in a Grand Tour is very rarely seen. And to back that up with the stage wins overall with Volta Algarve and the Tour of California, he definitely is racking up an impressive Palmars from a young age.
Yep, very much so. At 20 years of age he was, of course, now 21. This is our day. We had ourselves a super break out there. Greg van Avermaet and Nathan van Hooydonk were up the road, along with Gonzalez Serrano from Caja Rural, Carboni from Bardiani, Peo Bilbao, one of those showing very close, only 5 seconds off the pace in the overall. He was there for Bahrain McLaren, and so was Tim de Klerk. It thinned out, always was going to do so on the very last climb of the day. We'd had 4 majors earlier on. When we got to those ramps, the hurt really began. 23 and 24 Celsius degrees, I should say, of incline, and indeed it started the destruction of our breakaway. Carboni was the first to be shelled out. It came down to 4 once Caja Rural's Serrano had also been left in the wake of Greg van Avermaet, who decided to push on. But everyone else was mustering for, indeed, the big push on the inclines. And when that gap was finally put out, it was Tadej Pogačar who stretched his legs to take control of the day. This is the turn that where the Strava clock actually started to roll. I'll be fascinated to see how quickly Tadej Pogačar went up it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the lower slopes of the climb, they may not have been going full gas from the peloton, but as we heard in his post-race interview, Pogačar, he waited for the steepest slopes to make that acceleration, get that initial gap, and was able to hold it off from the race favourites all the way to the line.
Well, he had Jan Polans with him, but when Pogačar went for it, indeed it was a tempo change that nobody else could match. Drifted over to the right-hand side of the road, and it was a gauntlet thrown down that nobody was able to pick up. He was never headed from this point. It was a very, very classy piece of riding. Dan Martin came from the pack to try and close him down. Theo Geoghegan-Hart couldn't hold his wheel. Greg van Avermaet had been wound in at this point. There were plenty of other options going on behind, but really, when Tadej Pogačar was looking back, he didn't look like he had any fear. And belief is an amazing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he was looking back quite a lot in the climb to see if any of the other favourites were going to be able to close the gap across to his wheel, just keeping in check, because I think if he had to, he probably could have accelerated again. He thanked his teammates for the support there. Dela Cruz, Polans, a formidable lineup to support him in these hillier stages.
It's a great win. I know he's still to be crowned tomorrow in Valencia, but the gap he holds right now is a significant one. Dan Martin pushing on. Jack Haig will hand over the leader's yellow jersey. Paul's a creditable performance by him, likewise Theo Geoghegan-Hart, but there can only be one winner. It's Polans. What a day. What a day. What a ride it turned out to be from our winner. Another day still to come, don't forget, Valencia. It should be, hopefully, as entertaining as they all have been. It's a great race, this. Always entertains. Tadej Pogačar, then, it is that takes it by a margin of 6 seconds from Wout Poels. That'll be held on to. Same time given to Theo Geoghegan-Hart, Dan Martin, and indeed Jack Haig. Dylan Teuns, the best of the rest, finishing ahead of Izagirre. Sander Arme, Oscar Rodriguez, and Ruben Fernandez riding out your top 10. But look at the way the times started to fall away once the top 6 had come through. So thank you for your company. We, of course, race on tomorrow. Sunday will draw to a close, but I think we know who our winner is going to be. An appropriate ripple of applause. We'll race on tomorrow, and we expect your company. So much cycling going on at the moment. Valencia will draw to a close. Don't forget, 7 o'clock in the morning in the United Kingdom, we'll have the Tour of Langkawi. Rob Hatch and indeed Magnus Backstedt will be in the hot seat for that. Myself, Carlton Kirby, and indeed Simon Gerrans will be back in your good company tomorrow afternoon. 1:30, don't forget, in the UK. Looking forward to your company for what's bound to be a great finale. See you then. Bye-bye.
Ataque a más de 2 kilómetros para el final, a casi 3 kilómetros para el final. Hay un ataque en un puerto de estas características. Desde lejos ha sido el mejor, ha conseguido estar en la primera plaza, ha sabido economizar, guardar también y sobre todo pues dar ese golpe de efecto, digamos, para lo que es la clasificación general. Vamos a ir a brindar también con Luna de Murviedro, vamos a brindar de 1927 Murviedro y lo que es esa también botella que va a descorchar con todo el público que nos acompañáis en la línea meta. Tadej Pogačar, segunda botella después de la de Cullera. 2 ganadores para las 4 etapas que se han disputado hasta el momento en la Vuelta a la Comunidad Valenciana. Las 2 de Tadej Pogačar, las 2 de Dylan Groenewegen y como no también échale una mano. Ya veis que no va mucho a las discotecas Tadej Pogačar, Ya, ahora sí, venga, ahí estamos brindando con todo el público. Tadej Pogačar, que ha tenido mucho más complicado abrir la botella de Murviedro que subir en lo que es esta Sierra de Bernia. Felicidades, campeón, enhorabuena también para ti, sobre todo nuestra más sincera enhorabuena por esta jornada que nos ha brindado espectáculo desde el principio hasta el final. por etapas de la temporada. Suenan los aplausos para Tadej Pogačar, líder de la clasificación general de esta edición número 71 de la Vuelta a la Comunitat Valenciana Gran Premio Van Sabadell. Lo hacemos con la presencia en el podio de Jaime Matas, director general adjunto. Lo hacemos también con la presencia de Carlos Vinche, director regional. Marina Baiza. Felicidades también a nuestro supercampeón que aquí nos acompaña en lo que es la ceremonia protocolaria. Felicidades a Tadej Pogačar. Felicidades al equipo Emirates con esa gran victoria conseguida en esta edición, en esta cuarta etapa también de la Vuelta, donde hemos visto también ese espectáculo también de la jornada. Felicidades a nuestro supercampeón y enhorabuena para Taroya, mayor Comunitat Valenciana que le imponemos en estos momentos en esta línea meta. Felicidades, campeón, enhorabuena. Otro más para ti. Campeones, ¿cómo suena Dulzaina? Del Club Ciclista Altea. Bueno, genial, también con este fondo musical de campeón, campeón, campeón. Bueno, ya veis que no hemos bebido lo suficiente para cantar aquí en la línea de meta, Nos faltan 2-3 copas más para cantar el campeones, campeones, campeones. Enhorabuena, campeones. Esto es para Tadej Pogačar. Iremos a continuación con más premios en la línea de meta. Mayo Bianco, que diría Stefano Garcelli. Mayo Blanco, mejor joven. Engels and Volkers, que es el patrocinador del premio mejor joven de la clasificación general de la Vuelta, con Emilio Viñals, que es el director de Engels and Volkers, acompañándonos en la línea de meta. Bueno, echarme una mano, venga, echarme una mano. Se llama Tadej, ¿cómo se apellida? Ya ha dicho que nos faltan 3 o 4 cervezas más, cierto. Tadej Pogačar, ahí estamos, para mejor joven Engels and Volkers en el podio de hoy. Enhorabuena a nuestro campeón, felicidades al equipo Emirates, felicidades en esta línea de meta. Esto es arrasando. ¡Felicidades! Ahí estamos con Engels and Volkers acompañándonos en esta línea de meta. Felicidades a Tadej Pogačar, que dice, madre mía, etapa general, el mejor joven, la clasificación por puntos, y nos queda la montaña. ¿Quién es el líder de la montaña? Rojo y blanco. Quiero ver el clavo. Claro, porque que lo que es la ceremonia protocolaria. Gracias a Alberto, gracias a José Ramón, los diseñadores de los maillot cómic, también con la empresa española patrocinadora maillot oficial de la Vuelta a la Comunitat Valenciana. Y a continuación él también viene con maillot cómic, en este caso con el maillot cómic del equipo. Es Gonzalo Serrano, el ciclista madrileño mejor escalador de la Vuelta a la Comunitat Valenciana. ¡Ey! Ahí lo tenemos a un hombre que ha sido ganador de la Copa de España, campeón de España, también de contrarreloj individual. Es el premio especial que recibe de manos de todos nosotros en el final de la prueba, con nuestros amigos de Govic, con Alberto García, José Ramón, también Fortín en la entrega de la línea de meta, y con Alberto, José Ramón, y con sin duda el saludo de todos nosotros en el final de etapa. La enhorabuena para el equipo Caja Seguros RGA, para el hombre que tenemos en esa pantalla gigante, que es Gonzalo Serrano. Felicidades, campeones. Muchas gracias también para ti. A partir de ahora también esperamos lo que va a ser.
¡Ahí lo bato! ¡Ahí lo bato! ¡Ahí lo bato!
Nosotros, escapado en el día de hoy, ganador de 2 etapas del Giro de Italia, vencedor en la Vuelta a Murcia, vencedor en el Tour de Omer, también hombre que fue tercero en la clasificación general de la Vuelta a la Comunidad Valenciana. Suenan los aplausos para Pello Bilbao, el héroe también de la etapa del día de hoy. Felicidades para ellos, nuestra más sincera enhorabuena con ese final que nos han brindado nuestros corredores y con el equipo Bahrein McLaren de manos de Josep Miguel Moya, que reciben ese premio especial como la mejor escuadra de la Vuelta a la Comunidad Valenciana en esta, la 4ª etapa. Insistimos, todo de cara también para lo que va a ser el final de la competición. Con esto ya cerramos lo que es la ceremonia protocolaria del día de hoy. Lo hacemos con la foto final de Tadej Pogačar con el maillot amarillo del Banco Sabadell. Lo hacemos también con Gonzalo Serrano como líder del premio de la montaña con el maillot blanco y rojo de Eurosport, y lo hacemos con los 2 hombres del equipo Bahrein McLaren, Volta, Pello Bilbao en el podio de hoy, además de contar con todas las autoridades que nos han acompañado. Gracias también a Josep Miguel Moya, con Pérez Barbel, concejal de deportes del Ayuntamiento de Altea, con Jaime Mata, director general adjunto del Banco Sabadell, con Carlos Guiche, director regional Marina Baixa, con Alberto García, José Ramón Fortín también en representación de Gobin, Mario Villar, director de inteligencia turística de la Comunidad Valenciana, Emilio Viñal, director Engels and Volkers